remember the past week, events in the past week of historic proportions, crowning moment for Pakistan's democracy. President Pervez Musharraf, former president now, former chief of the army staff, pushed out of office without much activism on the streets of Pakistan, but certainly within the rules defined on the scope of the parliament, the whole political picture. What follows after Mr. Musharraf's departure? What follows for the democracy of Pakistan, for activism, for important causes which may have been neglected in the past? Essentially, that's really the broad parameter of today's discussion. I'm joined in our Islamabad studios by Farzana Raja, who's a member of the National Assembly for the Pakistan People's Party, Dr. Fouzia Saeed, who's a well-known social activist, and Mr. Khalid Khaja, who's gained prominence as a human rights activist, especially campaigning for people who've disappeared. Welcome to the studio. Thank you very much for being here. Farzana Raja, you've been in politics for some time now. President Pervez Musharraf's departure is now being characterized by your party as a new beginning for this country. But there are a whole list of challenges, major challenges ahead. Don't you think your party may be exaggerating the effect that's going to be brought about by one man's departure?
No, of course, there's no doubt. First of all, I say that departure of Musharraf has lifted a huge weight, I would say that, from the political process. And this leaves both like challenge and I would say that's like an opportunity. But at the same time, I would say that now the political forces and the democratic forces, we have to work very hard, and we have to, of course, meet these challenges that right now we have, and the challenges are governance challenge. We have a big challenge of terrorism, and of course the economy problem right now we are facing in the country. It's not only General Musharraf, because there was a team with him. They have been implementing their policies according to us, and of course the results we have already seen. These were wrong policies adopted by them because they were not the real representative of the people of Pakistan. So they did not care about the people of Pakistan. They just cared about their own, perpetuate their own rule, and that's the main agenda they had. Even for the war against terrorism, that was the only agenda they had with the Americans, and they discussed with them, and that's how they remained in power for years and years and years. And that's how they sell themselves and their services to
beginning
them.
According to you. Dr. Fouzia Saeed, Mr. Musharraf in his defense kept on saying till the last moment that he was more of a Democrat than many of the democratic politicians Pakistan had known. Do you think he had a valid point?
I think in terms of things that he did, there were many things that he did achieve. But I want to bring out a point which I think gets confused a lot, and especially these days when Musharraf is gone. And that is that we were against Musharraf because of the institution that he represented, because one institution had taken over another in a wrong way. That was the basic principle against which I think people were struggling. When you start confusing the debate in terms of what Musharraf did or what he didn't do, then it all gets mingled up. Because what if he had good policies, then we would say it is okay. The point is that people should not personify the problem in a person and then start discussing the person and what he did and what he didn't do. For example, if all his policies were okay, we would be sitting here and saying, yes, it was okay for him to rule for 8 years. So I want to always separate the two things. I think one is a principle stand where we are saying military is not supposed to rule the people. And then the second is in terms of policy. When we discuss the policy, we shouldn't mix up the two issues.
That's a valid point, but do you think at the end of the day we have to recognize that there are some parts of former President Musharraf's legacy which could provide us useful tools as we go into the future?
Well, in terms of institutions, I think like he did work in terms of setting up cultural institutions or whatever contribution there is. I think that debate is separate. I really think that when we discuss democracy, it is more about principles, it is more about, I think the reason why I'm separating these two very vividly is that we get confused and we think that now that Musharraf is gone, that fear is gone away. Whereas I believe that is not so, because it is so well institutionalized that in Pakistanis are always good at putting a personal face on a problem. And therefore, all the noise before Musharraf left against Musharraf was against Musharraf, and it was not against a certain principle.
So the person, the processes, institutions, these have to be put in different categories.
Yes.
We'll come back to this element of the discussion maybe at a later stage. But Mr. Khalid Khaja, before we conclude this segment, your work for the cause of people who disappeared, are you now more optimistic that former President Pervez Musharraf is gone and maybe you're going to make more progress?
Really, I'm not at all optimistic about it, because if you say that if the so-called democracy comes and there will be something positive, I don't think so. When Musharraf came, the democracy was in the best of its terms. Mr. Nawaz Sharif has more than 2/3 majority, and on his departure, people were distributing sweets on the roads. They were very happy. There were slogans, and they wanted him to go, and they all welcomed Musharraf. People of Pakistan were very happy what Musharraf was doing at that time. So they remained happy for some time, till the time this 11th September came, and immediately things started changing.
So the war on terror is
So in fact, the reason for the hate was not Musharraf. The reason for the hate was America and Bush. Now what is happening? This democracy which we are foreseeing now, it is again a deal designed by Mr. Bush and Americans. We are coming up. So it is only faces are being changed. Musharraf even staying away, but he's gone away with the deal. And rather, maybe I'm seeing maybe we get even the worst future, because maybe the new rulers have given them more assurances that maybe, okay, he has done enough. He was a tissue paper which we have thrown away, and he was useless, and we'll do better. So I think
really,
a long struggle is going to go
more
after that.
clarity needed for the future. We have to take a break right now. We'll be back in a moment, and we go on to discuss the matter which Dr. Fouzia Saeed raised earlier on, the institutional question. Were there institutional initiatives under former President Pervez Musharraf which should be remembered as a positive development in Pakistan's history? We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us. Put across as his big successes: more seats for women in the parliament and also devolution, grassroots institutions. We had 11 years of democracy before President Pervez Musharraf came to power, and yet these initiatives were not taken during that time, twice under the late former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto. Do you think one should give him credit where it's due in these areas?
First of all, I would say that the 11 years you have mentioned were not continuous 11 years. Sometimes 20 months, sometimes 28 months, and sometimes 32 months. So of course, when you don't have a continuity of political system, and of course your economic policies and your government manifesto implementation and all that, so how can you expect best result? But even after that, whatever results we had achieved or gained even at those 20 months and 28 months period of time, we haven't even gained or achieved in these continuous 9 years of his rule. And because if I go into details, then it will be a long debate. And the second point, as far as women's seats are concerned, it was initiated, these seats were initiated and started in Shahid Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's era in 70s. So this was not first time, but he increased the seats because he wanted to sell and show something to West to perpetuate his rule. And second is devolution. This devolution plan, and of course exactly like this, every dictator, whenever they come to power, they try to bring these kind of devolution plans and local government system and non-party basis elections. That's how they rule. One is president and down is local bodies, and in between that there are no assemblies. Now you were talking about institutions, and I'm really surprised what institution is left. I think institutions are not only weakened, but they are all destroyed. If we take number one, Parliament Parliament was a rubber stamp parliament. Every decision was taken by him as an individual, and of course in President House drawing room or Army Chief's House drawing room. And of course Parliament was never taken into confidence in different and big national issues. And the second is judiciary. You have seen what he has done with judiciary. He has I don't have even words to say for judiciary whatever he has done to judiciary. And then media, of course, media curbs and the way brutality was there, and we could see that. So institutions were badly destroyed. Just of course, as every dictator and ruler, when they come and they want to rule the country, and their system of ruling the country is divide and rule, of course.
Dr. Fouzia Saeed, would you like to respond to what Suzanne Raja has said?
That has been my concern, that people mix up the person with the system that we are talking about, and then whatever Musharraf has done is bad. And my question is, what if he would have done something good or everything good? Then could we just sit here and say, yeah, it is okay to have military, but then the economy should be okay and the policies should be okay? That is not the point. You know, when we argue, we don't say, it's almost like a domestic violence case. So if the wife has made a mistake, then it's okay for the husband to beat, and if she has not done anything wrong, then it's not. What is the logic between the two? That I fail to understand. I think that if, for example, if Musharraf would have done everything right, even though I think most of the people would not have, then would we have taken a stance then it's okay for the military people to come in? But, you know what I'm saying?
But
it's like
I appreciate your point of view here.
Okay, if you allow me to make just one single sentence, I would say that do we expect or can we expect from a military dictator to bring good policies? Is it possible to do that? Because that military dictator does not have people's support, and when you don't have people's support, you are not elected by people, and you are not for people, and you are not from people, how can you make policies for people?
Dr. Fouzia Saeed.
I say in the last 60 years, if I really pick out things that really I like that happened in Pakistan, devolution is one of those things.
And it happened under former President Pervez Musharraf.
And I think that the system is very good, but I make my distinction. I don't say that everything that he has done is bad, but I say I have worked against military taking over civilian institutions. That struggle is very different than assessing. So what I will tell you, the sort of the dark side of this kind of thinking, then what happens is, even if the government is taking a good stance or a just stance, just because everybody hates Musharraf, they would say, now they are attacking the civilians and they're using military force, and yesterday we heard the same thing from the government. So it's just like very similar statements from a different government.
Mr. Khalid Khaja, your turn.
Yeah, problem is, you see, it is not that, as my sister Farzana is saying, that you see that these people never got a chance for 9 years and all that. Let me assure you, military cannot dare to come till the time people are not fed up with that government. What was happened, that these political people, they could not deliver, and people were absolutely, they just looking forward for somebody to come in. So they invited military, and military came. Similarly,
I don't want to deviate from the core focus of this discussion, but there are many countries around the world where people are fed up from governments. That's not unique to Pakistan. And not every country then invites the military to take over.
I fully agree with you. I never say that military should ever come. I never say. But the problem is that people should be happy. Here, in Pakistan, what happened is, there is a ruling class. There are dictators. Whether the dictator comes from army, or he comes from a dynasty, whether it's the Bhutto dynasty, or a Sharif dynasty, or a Zardari dynasty. So these dynasties are just ruling. It's not the people. People hardly matter at all. Now right here also, if you say people, Mrs. Benazir Bhutto, she was murdered and killed and all that. But it's a dynasty which is ruling. People hardly matter. It's money which makes difference, and it is Americans which make difference. It's generally, I've talked to the people.
You've put a number of elements on the table which you say dominate politics, but Pakistani politics is also, I think it's right to say, is also going through a series of dynamic changes. It is changing.
Yeah.
This country has changed during the past few years, and it is changing in many ways. We go on to that very issue on how the future of politics in Pakistan and the democratic activism is going to be different from the past, and we'll just discuss some of those elements. But we have to take a break right now. We'll be back in a moment. The past, recent past, present, and then where do we go from here? The future of Pakistani politics. Stay with us. Forward. How is the character of democratic politics in Pakistan going to be different, especially driven by a very open, robust, and growing media environment?
First of all, before I go to, in the future, I would like to make one or two comments, whatever my brother, Mr. Khaja Khalid has said about the politicians and Bhutto family's dynasty and legacy and all that. I tell you one thing, whether they are good, bad, dictators, whatever, but they have been struggling for the rights of the people of Pakistan. And for that, people of Pakistan, they acknowledge whatever sacrifices they have made for them, and this is they are always elected by the people of Pakistan. That's the reason Pakistan People's Party is the largest political party of Pakistan, and any other party, whatever proportion and votes they get, they are elected by the people of Pakistan. Whosoever whatever they decide about the political parties, I think that's the supreme. And if we are in the parliament, and of course we have to take the decisions, no individual can criticize like this, that they are there because of America or because of somebody else, because America does not interfere in Pakistan's elections, because Pakistan elections, Pakistani people, they come out and vote for that. Now you are talking about
now the question of looking forward.
Of course. Now the scenario is changed, because after so many sacrifices, and after especially Mohtarama Benazir Bhutto's Shahid's life she has laid down for the people of Pakistan, Mr. Nawaz Sharif, he has learnt a lot during his, of course, exile life. And now the need of the day is to be together at one platform, as we have been struggling together at one platform, and that was ARD, one agenda, restoration of true democracy in this country.
And you're convinced you'll remain together in spite of the judges' issue?
You see, there are so many issues, because we are different political parties, having different manifestos, different thinking, different ideology, but we are together to save this country, to save the federation, to serve the people of Pakistan. So now we have to think as a nation. We have to think, as a nation, and we have to move forward together, and that's what we are planning. Whatever differences we have, and I hope these differences will be solved very soon. Today we are having a Central Executive Committee's meeting, and of course we have set up a committee for judges' resolution drafting committee and all that. And Monday most probably we have a resolution. We'll table resolution in the Parliament. Whatever results are there or outcome of these meetings. But I can assure you one thing, that we want to strengthen the democratic and political system in this country, and whatever system. We have a democratic system, we want a democratic system, but if you talk about China, if you talk about other countries, whatever system they have in their country, but that is continued system, that's why they are successful.
Dr. Fouzia Saeed.
Okay. I'll make 2 points. The first thing is that our politicians have to become more mature. I think that we people, because I think that I represent the citizens, I think that we are very tired of general statements. And since the election, one has been wanting to hear policies, strategies, specific plans, things like that. And I think that maturity, I totally agree with her, you have to leave a system in place for a while. But I'm just telling you what our expectations are. We want to see a maturity among our politicians, and we want them to learn from their mistakes, because I think that many people are tired of our politicians making the same mistakes again and again. Okay, the second point is that people think that they have asserted their will through elections only. And the rest of the time, I feel like they keep complaining, and they keep saying the government has not done this for us and the government has not done that for us. And I think people really need to realize that citizens are a part of democracy. It is not that they vote and they elect somebody and then that somebody will come with a magic wand. I think that people contribute in perpetuating the problems.
Other than the vote, what are the other safeguards
My God,
that you would like to be
following-
put in place on a
Okay.
continuing basis so that people don't have to wait for 4 or 5 years till the next election?
Okay, yeah, and I don't just mean their choice in terms of who is governing them. I mean in terms of principles, in terms of values. It's like everybody, we complain our leaders are corrupt, but you slice our society whichever way and you will find corruption. So it's like, you know, everybody wants democracy at the higher level, but they don't want to practice that within their homes or within their institutions or their political parties or elsewhere. Everybody wants honesty and leaders who are not corrupt. You may think that this is vague, but believe me, it's like citizens, if they want an honest government, they need to start becoming honest also.
So maybe this is a kind of a national defect if you do not have
It's like a
democratic
cancer.
values down the line, the average household and so on.
Because you can hide behind the government has not done this, and I want the governments to be accountable, but not to the extent that we start hiding behind them.
I want to
Mr. Khalid Khaja.
I want to give you 2 points. First of all, let's realize what is the real problem. As my sister said that, okay, they are elected people. The people have a problem. They are given 4 choices. Will you get a slap, or you will get a box, or you will get a stick, or you will get a bullet? So they don't have any other choice. They have to choose one of these. Now, how to do it now? So I suggest, as you said, that media can do it. We should decide that no hypocrite has a right to become a leader. And we know who is a hypocrite, and we are told anybody who lies, he's a hypocrite. Anybody who...
But that's a choice that people have to make,
No,
isn't it?
No, people
and that
cannot.
will, will happen over a period of time.
As you said that people, they don't, for 5 years, they cannot do anything. But I'm giving a suggestion which, if generally it will be agreed, that a hypocrite should not be a leader. And hypocrite is that who lies or who does not keep up his promise and who abuses and who does not keep the amanat. So media can do it. Very easily you can know who are the people who are lying, who are the people who are not keeping promising. These are the open, clear principles of
Those
hypocrisy.
are valid points. Hypocrites should not be allowed to run for political office, of course, but I think in defense of politicians, it has to be said as well that they have to be left alone. And the political order has to be left alone for a sufficiently long period of time. These repeated military-backed interventions will only perpetuate the problem because you're not allowing enough time to the political order to play itself out, to give people the opportunities.
Whether it is a military or it is a these, you see, for us, for the people, they're all equal. You know, whether it is a political leader or a military person, even a military person, when he does, the day Pervez Musharraf came, frankly speaking, if there was a political referendum kind of a thing, a genuine referendum, he would have won that, for sure. When Ziaul Haq came, if there was a political, real referendum at that time, at least Musharraf would have won it for sure because the people wanted it at that time, a change at that time.
So far, Mr. Khaja and Dr. Saeed and Fadhan Raja, we've discussed issues about democratic politics directly or indirectly linked to the parliament and political parties and what they represent. But in the past 1 year, the activism surrounding the cause of judges has also brought Pakistani civil society to the center stage of democracy in this country. We're going to go on to discuss that issue, but we have to take a break right now. We'll be back in a moment. The importance of civil society as a newly emerging force in Pakistani politics. Is it a newly emerging force? That and other questions. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment. Stage of political activism for the cause of the judges and other matters as well, but especially the lawyers movement. As your government, the PPP-led government, do you think you'll have to cope with the civil society as a political force much more than previous governments in the past?
I tell you one thing, we as a political party have been supporting civil society from the very beginning because we were the one who wanted to bring civil society. Otherwise, other political parties and other different forces, they have been working against civil society, saying they are the agents of A, B, C, X, Y, Z, I don't want to name it. So Mohtarama Benazir Bhutto Shaheed always supported the civil society, especially women, men, whosoever is working for even political activism or civil rights and all that.
But you
now,
agree with the statement that in the last 15 months, the civil society has emerged as a new force in this country?
I tell you one thing, they are a new force, yes, of course. But if you talk about a political system, if they come into political system and the people of Pakistan, they have to decide who is doing what, right or wrong, as both my colleagues, sister and brother, were saying, I would rather say that people of Pakistan, they are the right judge, and they have to do the accountability. If we are doing wrong, if we are doing right, they have to decide after 5 years. And now they are saying that we can't wait for 5 years because we have a constitution in our country. We have to give respect to that constitution. And if they have been fighting for somebody's right, for judiciary's right, if they have been fighting for anything in this country, and we have been fighting for true democracy in this country, why? Because it is written in the 1973's constitution.
For the sake of argument, if the settlement, the eventual settlement on the judges' question is under the -1 formula, former Chief Justice Iftikhar Mohammad Chaudhry not being restored for political reasons, political choices made by your party and the other party, have you considered the extent to which there could be a civil society backlash against you?
I don't think so. Whatever the majority of the people of Pakistan will decide, where is the majority now? Majority lying in the parliament. And whatever decision will be taken in the parliament. And that will be the majority's decision, and everybody has to follow that. Because the parliament
has to follow that?
No,
I
parliament's decision has to...
People might come and take a different view.
No, I tell you one thing. You can have different view, but you cannot say that parliament's decision will not be accepted, because parliament has the support and backing of constitution, and we have to have 1973 constitution, and of course according to that parliament is supreme, and parliament is one institution which is representing the millions of people of Pakistan. So when something is decided in the parliament, yes, you can, as an individual, you can have difference of opinion, but of course everybody has to accept the decision.
Let me turn to Dr. Fouzia Saeed. Do you think whatever is decided in the parliament in this day and age will be universally accepted across Pakistan?
No, and I think that the record shows that it would not. And I want to get back to your earlier question also, because I think that what the civil society has shown is not something new. I think after President Ayub Khan, or ex-President Ayub Khan's time, and Ziaul Haq's time, and now, and there have been many other times on a specific issue, people have come out on the streets. What I would say is that people are more careful to come out on the streets when we have a democratic system, because somehow we feel like now we are ruling, right? And they are tempted to come out on the streets more when there is a dictator, because we feel like there are no avenues or mechanisms to express what we want to express. But yes, I think that it was very important in terms of tipping the power game. At the same time, I think that this whole struggle was symbolic. And this whole struggle does not mean that if tomorrow the judges' issue is resolved, then that means that judiciary becomes supreme. I don't think we should be naive enough to think that these institutions will have autonomy and the right status and respect only after resolving this one issue. This issue is extremely important and it should be resolved, but we need to think beyond that.
Mr. Khalid Khaja, your chance to reply very briefly.
You see what is being said, that if the majority of the people, whatever they decide, first of all, will it be accepted or it should be accepted? To me, even if 99% of this parliament decides to kill one man in Bajaur, it is wrong. We have to see, even if the constitution, but say it's very sacred, to me, there's a more sacred book than that is Quran. So this constitution can be implemented, it can be changed, it can be amended. Quran cannot be amended. We have to see what is right and what is wrong. It does not mean that whatever majority says, it is wrong. We all three of us are Muslims, and our Quran says, وَإِن تُطِيعْ أَكْثَرَ مِنَ النَّاسِ يُضِلُّوكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. If you will follow the majority of the people, it will take you away from God. And if you read, just what's 1 minute.
I respect that particular
No,
interpretation.
there is only one sentence I want to say.
The linkage between the parliament and the people, popular opinion.
I just one sentence I want to say, because we are just victim of a conspiracy. If you read the book Protocol by the Jews, they say give the democracy to these goyim, and when they tell their rulers that the people can take back your power, and that power of the people will be your power. In fact, in the name of democracy, there's a lot of dictatorships are going on in this world, and their strings are there somewhere at the back. That's what is happening to our people.
Your point of view. I have to take a break right now. We'll be back in a moment. I can see Fouzia Raja is very anxious to respond to Mr. Khalid Khaja, but we have to take a break. We'll be back in a moment for our concluding segment on this discussion, post-Musharraf, the democratic picture, the emerging scenario. Stay with us. Scenario, the future of democracy in Pakistan. Fouzia Raja, yours is a party which has, at least a few times in the past, had its tenure uninterrupted. In the 1990s, late Benazir Bhutto when he was the Prime Minister. Are you absolutely confident that this time around you'll get a longer inning to play?
Alhamdulillah, we think that after Mr. Musharraf's departure, these chances are very wide that we move forward, and that's the reason Pakistan People's Party's workers and leaders and office bearers, everybody wants that Mr. Asif Ali Zardari should be there as a president. So if he's sitting there, so nobody can become Farooq Laghari or anybody else like who can use 58(2)(b. And second main point is that whosoever will be the president in the parliament will give a gift to the people of Pakistan and of course to the nation, and that gift will be returning of 58(2)(b to them, of course, and parliament will be free and independent and sovereign to legislate and of course make policies for the people of Pakistan. But now the important point is I respect everybody's point. This is democracy. What is democracy? To respect everybody else's point of view, and whatever they are saying, I respect their point of view. But I am thinking that imposing a minority's thinking or individuals' thinking on somebody else forcefully is a dictatorship. What is dictatorship? That you want that whatever I think is right and it should be implemented. But whatever majority is thinking, whatever is their point of view, that should be accepted to everybody. That's what I think.
Fair point. Dr. Fouzia Saeed, do you think their democratic government is now assured on all fronts, especially if they take charge of the presidency, as we've just heard from Fouzia Raja?
You were saying that whether I see hope or...
Well, absolutely. What's your assessment for the future in the scenario that we just heard?
Okay, I will repeat one point. I think one wants to see a lot of maturity. I think it's okay to make compromises. I don't think that parties should realize that they need to make compromises in order to make sure that this cycle of democratic process, which I think right now is more important than parties, that should continue. And so one can only hope. I do not want to make assessments, but I hope that they are mature enough to make sure that this continues, and they do not give an opportunity or a weak point to again to be taken over by forces that then the country sort of takes about 10 years on average to get rid of.
Those forces being the military.
Absolutely.
I fully agree with Madam Fouzia Raja that nobody has a right to dictate over anybody. I have no right to dictate you, and you have no right to dictate me. Similarly, the majority does not have a right to dictate anybody else. It is only and only God who has a right to dictate. That's what we believe, that all of us are slaves of God, and whatever the God and His prophets' dictations are there, as a Muslim, we are supposed to be dictated by those. So that's what we also say, that nobody has a right to do.
One thing to say, Awaaz-e Khalq ko nikara-e Khuda samajh.
That's a very famous saying, and I think that is really the essence of, or one of the fundamental pillars of democracy as we know it in this day and age.
Okay.
But having said that,
Awaaz-e Khalq says one thing today. I met Mr. Zardari, I met Nawaz Sharif and all those people. They said we will release all these missing people the day we get into power, but they were not released. up
And
till
indeed,
today,
that is going to be
okay.
one of the litmus tests going
Yeah.
forward.
Inshallah, it will be done very
The
soon.
there are a
issue
lot of other
people
things.
who
And similarly,
disappeared.
one more thing, that you know why this Pervez Musharraf came? I remember I was very active in the initial days of Benazir and Nawasi. I was negotiating between them, and there was a time when they were supposed to meet
Mr.
at my
Khaja,
place.
unfortunately,
it was their
we have
fight which has brought the...
we have to conclude this discussion, but you've made a valid point. Politicians should not be fighting each other. That's one of the things that could destabilize the political system. Fardana Raja, Dr. Fouzia Saeed, Mr. Khalid Khaja, thank you very much for being here today. This brings us to the end of this discussion, the entire matter of Pakistan's democratic future. For 9 years, President Pervez Musharraf was in power. Now he's gone. A lot of people are hoping for a better future, and like we heard from Mr. Khalid Khaja, the issue of disappeared people is going to be one of those litmus tests in the days to come. We'll be watching, and we'll be, of course, bringing you updates through our news coverage and discussions on all these important events and how they are tackled. Before I conclude this program, do remember to write to us feedback, comments, suggestions, ideas. Our email address is centerpoint@dawnnews.tv. Till next week, I'm Farhan Bukhari from Islamabad. Goodbye.